there's this elephant in the room that we've all been dealing with, right? COVID-19. We thought maybe it would be a shorter stay, but at this point, it looks like it's going to be here a while. Even with, as I'm shooting this, the vaccines starting to roll out, my prediction is that's going to take much longer than expected. So you're probably wondering to yourself, can I run during quarantine? Is it okay to run with stay-at-home orders? All these kind of things. So I'm Jesse Funk, and on today's episode of Runner's High, let's talk about, can you run during quarantine? Under what circumstances? How do you stay safe? How do you keep the people around you safe? First, like many of the health-related episodes I do, I have to give a caveat. I am not a doctor, and if the CDC or somebody much more important than me comes out and contradicts anything I say in this video, go with that. Just don't listen to me. But what I'm going to do in this video is try to aggregate the information that we have now, the best practices we have now, to try to help reassure you that yes, you are going to be okay. There are some circumstances where it is fine and sometimes even good for you to get out and run. But again, if there's something that circumvents or kind of overrides what I'm saying here, go with that. Just ignore me. So, can you run while in quarantine? Well, first, we have to figure out what do you mean by quarantine? Do you mean I've been exposed to somebody with COVID, or I've had COVID and I'm currently in a quarantine period? Or do you mean, hey, everybody's staying at home, we're quarantined as in self-quarantining, we don't know that we've been exposed to anybody, we're just trying to be cautious. If the former, the first one where you know you've been exposed, or you have actually tested positive, then I would say no. And this is for your benefit and for everybody else's benefit. You obviously don't want to be spreading this virus around to other people. Now, I do, preach consistency. Consistency brings results when it comes to running, but this is an instance where you have to make an exception. For various reasons beyond other people's own safety. If you don't want to be selfless, which I hope you will be, you know that it can have respiratory complications. So I don't know this, but generally the guidelines I give that coaches I've known have all gone by is if you have any kind of respiratory issue, don't go run, because you're taxing those systems further and that can lead to complications. I know my coach, my high school coach, I've gone back to coach with him, and we were at a meet. He had to leave because he had pneumonia, because he kept pushing himself because he wanted to take care of his athletes when he was sick. He didn't follow his own guidelines. I've seen it firsthand how a cold, just something that should be relatively easy to knock off, becomes something more severe. And complications from COVID are not uncommon when we look at the whole data set. So I think in that case, if you've been exposed, possibly exposed, and you're in that 10 to 14 day quarantine period, don't go run. That's just an easy no. Don't do that. That's going to be what I'm going to stick with. Maybe the CDC will come out with some kind of guidelines to say, yes, it is fine, but I would guess that they won't. Now, what about if you're just staying at home, trying to stay safe, trying to stay sane while you are, kind of keeping your own bubble together, not seeing family and friends, not going out and doing things? Is it okay to go run? Well, everything we've seen, everything that we know so far suggests that, yes, it is probably fine to run. Now, it also depends on where you're running, right? So if you're running on busy streets and you're passing lots of people, that's obviously a higher risk situation than if you're out in the country running on a road or a trail and nobody's around. So there are more people that are wearing masks while running. And we've seen numerous people show how oxygen intake, blood oxygenation isn't really affected by a mask. So you don't have to worry too much about performance. And I actually use a mask during the wintertime just to stay warm. Regardless of COVID, this is something I've done for decades now, though mine has been a ski mask, not these kind of cloth masks that we're wearing now. And I can tell you, it does slow me down a bit. My mask is much thicker because it's a ski mask, but it is really not an impediment to me going to do a long run. So if you feel more comfortable, or you know you're going to be around a lot of people on a busy trail, on sidewalks, something like that, then it's perfectly fine to wear a mask, and maybe even advised to do that when you go out to run. Now, if you're like me, you have plenty of opportunity to get away from people, kind of run on side streets or trails where there really isn't anybody around. My personal recommendation, again, I think guidelines from the CDC kind of coincide with this, at least for the moment, is that it's fine not to wear a mask because nobody's around and you're outdoors. Now, this next bit of information is pretty informal. So keep it at that and know that as intelligent people, you and I, we really want more data. But I can say I've received information from local race directors that are sending out emails to me trying to get me to do races, that so far of the races that have taken place since March, since kind of the initial lockdown and then lift up and the summer season, all that within their own circle of race directors, they haven't had anybody test positive as a result of the races. This again is going to be a case of we want more data. We really want more data, but you also can't have more data without having more races. It's kind of a catch-22. So if you feel comfortable racing, race directors are often trying to make accommodations where we're splitting up, run people in waves instead of having a mass start, so you have less people going at a time, those kind of things. The saving grace, I think, in part is possibly that everybody's outside. We're not doing like an indoor track meet. It's an outdoor event, and that should, theoretically, lower the transmission rate. But again, this is something where things are developing. It's ongoing. We need more data. So I bring it up just to say that there is the consistency of information so far to say this is probably fine. But much like anything with science, we need it to be repeatable. We need data. We need time to gather that information to say definitively one way or another, hey, this works, hey, this doesn't work. And that is part of the frustrating process, right? So if you are more comfortable not racing for now, that's perfectly fine. Don't feel pressured into racing. If you're going to be around a bunch of people, that's not a great time to race. And the other thing here is that there will be plenty of races when we get past this, because we will get past it however long it takes. And we don't know exactly how long it's going to take yet. So much like a long run or training, take a long-term approach at it. Do your workouts, enjoy the training, learn to enjoy training, and just let the races be what they're going to be for now. If you want to go race, do that. Be safe, wear a mask, besides, when you're actually doing the race. And if you don't want to race, don't race. But in general, I think we say, can I run during quarantine? Don't if you've been exposed, tested positive, anything like that, and you're in an actual 10 to 14 day quarantine window. But if you're just living your life, staying away from people, then I don't think there's any kind of issue with you going out to run. Please, if there's any new updates, guidelines, information, leave them down in the comments below. Let's all stay together on this one, stay up to date as we can. This is a timepiece as I'm shooting this here, basically a week before Christmas, to give you an idea of how far ahead I'm shooting. If you have any information, please, again, leave it in the comments so we all stay up to date, because this video will be a static piece forever. And I will see you next time on the next episode of Runner's High.